The galactic standard date read 7842.318, and I, observer Thalanix Voice, was about to witness the beginning of the end. Not that I knew it then, of course. No one ever recognizes apocalypse when it's wearing casual clothes. Another routine observation mission, I grumbled, adjusting the sensory inputs on my ship's dashboard. Watch the primitives. Don't interact with the primitives. Document the primitives. 9,000 cycles of the same nonsense. My assistant, Quen, a blue-skinned Turian with 3 eyes placed in a perfect triangle on her face, didn't look up from her data tablet. Your complaining has reached a new record today. Observer Voice, 57 instances before midday. Congratulations. Thank you for the precise accounting of my misery, I replied, punching in the coordinates for Earth, or as the locals called it in their thousands of languages, well, Earth, Terra, Dunia, and about 7,000 other variations. Humans lacked imagination when it came to naming their own planet. Perhaps I should receive a medal. Perhaps you should remember you volunteered for this assignment, Quen countered, finally looking up, her middle eye, the one that could see emotional spectrums, contracted slightly. You requested Earth specifically. She had me there. I had volunteered. 3 standard years ago I'd been fascinated by humans. They were an oddity in the galaxy, a species that had achieved spaceflight despite being perpetually on the brink of self-destruction. They fought wars over imaginary lines on their planet, over resources they could have synthesized with their technology, over differences in belief systems that couldn't be proven either way. They were, to be frank, absolutely ridiculous. And yet they created art that made hardened Zarkatian warriors weep. They composed music that even the tone-deaf Voltrixians found moving. They wrote stories that captured the imagination of species who had explored 1,000 worlds. I requested Earth because I thought they were going to do something interesting, I said, flicking through the latest reports on human activity. Instead, they are still arguing about whether to terraform Mars or not. It's been 70 years. Just terraform the blasted rock already. Quen's mandibles clicked in amusement. You have grown attached to them. I have not, I protested. Perhaps too quickly. I'm just tired of watching potential squandered. The Galactic Council has been observing Earth for over 3 centuries. That's longer than any other pre-integration species in the history of the program. Because they are fascinating, Quen said, her voice softening. You said so yourself when you requested this assignment. Yes. Well, that was before I spent 3 years watching them debate the ethics of artificial intelligence while simultaneously teaching their AIs to compose poetry and diagnose diseases. I sighed, a habit I'd picked up from too many hours watching human transmissions. They are walking contradictions. Our ship, the observer vessel Meticulous Inquiry, slipped into Earth orbit with the stealth capabilities that made Galactic Council observation ships undetectable to primitive scanning systems. Below us, the blue-green planet spun, oblivious to our presence. Anything interesting on the docket today? Quen asked, activating our observation protocols. I scanned through the day's list. Same as always. Political tensions in the usual hotspots. Environmental recovery efforts in the Amazon. The Mars colony is having trouble with their hydroponics again. Oh, and one of their celebrities wore the wrong outfit to some gathering, causing what they are calling a social media meltdown. Truly apocalyptic stuff. Quen's mandibles clicked again. You know the protocol. We observe everything, no matter how trivial it might seem. Yes, because the fate of the galaxy might hinge on what Jimothy Harrelson wore to the Academy Awards, I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Jimothy isn't a real human name, Quen noted. It absolutely is. I heard it on one of their broadcasts. You did not. Fine, their names all sound the same to me after a while. John, James, Jack, Jimothy. Quen made an annotation on her tablet. I'm noting your cultural bias in the official record. I waved a dismissive tentacle. Note away. The point is, an alarm blared, cutting me off. The ship's systems highlighted a region in North America, zooming in automatically. What's happening? I asked, suddenly alert. Quen's fingers flew across her controls. Unusual energy signature detected in the human settlement of New Washington. New Washington had been built after Old Washington had been mostly reclaimed by rising sea levels. Humans, persistent little creatures that they were, simply moved their capital 100 kilometers inland and carried on as though nothing had happened. What kind of energy signature? I leaned forward, my earlier boredom forgotten. Unknown, Quen replied, her professional demeanor taking over. It doesn't match any known human technology. That got my attention. Non-human technology. On Earth. That's a violation of the non-interference protocols. Scanning, Quen said, her eyes narrowing as data streamed across her screen. It appears to be by the cosmic void. It's Craxus technology. My blood ran cold. That's impossible. The Craxus Dominion wouldn't dare violate Council space, let alone interfere with a developing world. The Craxus were one of the few species that had refused to join the Galactic Council, aggressive, expansionist, and believing themselves to be the rightful rulers of the galaxy. They had been contained to their home systems for centuries through careful diplomacy and the implicit threat of the combined Council fleet. Confirmed, Quen said, her voice tight. It's a Craxus phase disruptor. Small, probably handheld. We need to alert the Council immediately, I said, already preparing a priority transmission. This is a direct violation of at least 7 major treaties. Wait, Quen said, raising a hand. Something's happening. On our view screen, zoomed in to the maximum resolution our sensors allowed, we could see a human gathering, some sort of public address. A figure stood on a platform, surrounded by security personnel. The energy signature was coming from somewhere in the crowd. Is that, I started? President Anton Velasquez, Quen confirmed. The human global authority figure. As we watched, helpless in orbit, a beam of sickly green light shot through the crowd. The humans had no warning, no defense. The beam struck President Velasquez directly in the chest. For a moment nothing happened. Then, to our horror, the human leader began to dissolve, molecule by molecule, from the inside out. The crowd erupted into chaos. Security personnel rushed in all directions. The view screen showed humans screaming, running, falling over each other in their panic. By the void, I whispered. They just assassinated the human leader with Craxus technology. Quen was already sending the emergency transmission to the Council. This is an act of war, not just against Earth, but against the Council itself. I couldn't take my eyes off the view screen. The humans don't even know what hit them. They will think it was one of their own weapons. Observer voice, Quen said formally, as per Emergency Protocol 7B, we are now required to intervene. That snapped me out of my shock. Intervene? We can't. Earth isn't ready for contact. The Craxus have already violated the non-interference directive, Quen replied calmly. The protocol is clear. When an outside force interferes with a developing world, we are authorized to intervene to the minimum extent necessary to neutralize the threat and prevent further damage to the natural development of the species. She was right, of course. The protocols were drilled into every observer during training, but in 3 centuries of the Earth observation program, they had never been activated. Minimum intervention, I repeated, trying to process what was happening. We need to find that Craxus weapon and whoever used it. Already scanning, Quen said. Her professional efficiency a comfort in this chaos. The energy signature is moving rapidly away from the scene. It appears to be in a ground transport vehicle. Can we track it? Yes, but we will need to enter the atmosphere. We will be visible to human detection systems. I took a deep breath. Do it. Protocol 7B authorizes visibility if necessary. As our ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, I couldn't help but think about how this single act of violence was about to change everything for humans, for the Council, and for the galaxy at large. The meticulous inquiry cut through clouds as we pursued the Craxus energy signature. Below us, human vehicles with flashing lights were also in pursuit, though they were falling behind the target. They have spotted us, Quen reported, as human communications suddenly exploded with chatter about an unidentified aerial phenomenon. Let them look, I said grimly. Finding that weapon takes priority. We tracked the signature to a remote facility outside the human city. As we hovered above it, our scanners revealed multiple non-human energy signatures inside. This isn't just one rogue operator, I said, staring at the readings. This is a full Craxus operation on Earth. Observer Vones, Quen said formally, I believe this situation exceeds our operational parameters. We should wait for Council reinforcements. She was right again. 2 observers in an unarmed science vessel were not equipped to handle a Craxus strike team, but something inside me rebelled at the thought of waiting. The humans had just lost their leader. They were vulnerable, confused, and had no idea of the true threat they were facing. The nearest Council military vessel is 3 days away at maximum speed, I said, checking the deployment charts. The Craxus could do incalculable damage in that time. They could completely destabilize Earth's political systems. That is not our concern, Quen replied, though I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Our mission is observation, not intervention in human affairs. Our mission changed the moment that Craxus weapon fired, I countered. Protocol 7B authorizes us to prevent further interference. We don't have to engage them directly. We just need to alert the humans to the true nature of the threat. God. Gwen's 3 eyes widened. You want to make direct contact? Thalanix. That's going far beyond minimum intervention. She had used my personal name rather than my title, a sign of how shocked she was. In 3 years working together she had never done that. Not full contact, I clarified. Just enough information to help them defend themselves until Council forces arrive. The cultural shock could be devastating, Quen argued. More devastating than having their leader assassinated by technology they can't understand, I asked. They are already in shock. At least this way they will have a fighting chance. Before Quen could respond, a new alarm sounded. The view screen showed human military vehicles surrounding the facility. They were preparing to assault the building. They are going to be slaughtered, I said quietly. Craxus battle technology is centuries beyond human capabilities. Quen was silent for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, she began entering commands into her console. I'm preparing a targeted information packet. Basic details on Craxus vulnerabilities and technology limitations. Nothing about the Council or the wider galaxy, just enough for them to have a chance. Relief flooded through me. Thank you, Quen. Don't thank me yet, she replied grimly. We are about to change human history forever. The Council may have both our heads for this. Better our heads than an entire species left defenseless, I said, helping her prepare the data. Who do we send it to? Gwen's fingers danced across her console. Their military has a secure communications network. Primitive by our standards, but it will serve. I'm looking for their highest-ranking officer on site. The view screen showed a human female barking orders to others around her. Her uniform bore more decorative elements than the others, suggesting higher rank. Her, I said, pointing. She seems to be in command. General Mira Okafor. Quen read from the human identification systems we'd hacked years ago as part of our observation duties. Decorated combat veteran, highly respected tactician. Perfect, I said. Send her everything we have on Craxus shield modulations and weak points in their armor. As Quen prepared the transmission, I watched the humans positioning themselves around the facility. They were disciplined, methodical, but completely unprepared for what waited inside. Without our help, it would be a massacre. Transmission ready, Quen announced. Once I send this, there's no going back. We will have irreversibly altered the course of human development. I placed a hand on her shoulder. They were already on a new course the moment that weapon fired. We are just giving them a compass. Quen nodded and initiated the transmission. On the view screen, we saw General Okafor react with surprise as her communication device activated unexpectedly. She studied the incoming data with obvious confusion, then shock, then determined focus. To her credit, she didn't waste time questioning the impossible source of the information. Instead, she immediately began issuing new orders to her troops. She's adapting their tactics, I observed with grudging respect. Impressive. Humans are nothing if not adaptable, Quen agreed. It's their defining characteristic. We watched as the human forces repositioned according to the general's new instructions. They adjusted their weapons to frequencies that would be more effective against Craxus shields, thanks to our data. Should we intervene further? Quen asked as the humans prepared to breach the facility. I considered it briefly, then shook my head. We have done enough, more than enough. The Council will already have both our careers for this. Let's not make it worse by directly engaging in combat. The humans moved in with surprising efficiency. Following our transmitted tactical advice, they breached the facility at multiple points simultaneously, using electromagnetic pulses to disrupt Craxus communications, as we'd suggested. What followed was chaos. Even with our information, the humans were outmatched technologically, but they had numbers, determination, and now, crucially, knowledge of what they were facing. The Craxus are falling back, Quen reported. monitoring the energy signatures. They didn't expect resistance this effective. They underestimated the humans, I said, unable to keep the satisfaction from my voice. A common mistake. The battle raged for 27 minutes. 27 minutes that changed the course of human history forever. When it was over, 12 Craxus operatives were dead, along with 23 humans, but the facility was secured, and most importantly, the humans now had irrefutable evidence that they were not alone in the universe. General Okafor stood amid the aftermath, looking at the fallen alien bodies with a mixture of horror and resolve. She gave orders to secure the technology and the remains, then looked up toward the sky directly at our ship, though she couldn't possibly see us through our stealth systems. "Thank you," she said simply, as if she knew we were watching. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Council ships are en route," Quen reported. "Estimated arrival in 64 hours. We are ordered to maintain observation and prevent further Craxus interference if possible." "And the humans?" Quen's expression was troubled. "The Council is deliberating on how to proceed. They have activated the first contact protocols, but there's significant disagreement about timing and approach." "They are too late," I said, watching as human media vehicles arrived at the scene. "First contact has already happened. There's no going back now." Over the next several hours, we watched as news of the alien presence spread across Earth like wildfire. Human communications networks exploded with speculation, fear, religious proclamations, and everything in between. Their governments tried to contain the information, but in the age of instant global communication, it was futile. By nightfall, the entire planet knew humanity was not alone, and their first introduction to galactic society had come in the form of an assassination. Why would the Craxus do this? Quen wondered aloud as we monitored the human responses. What could they possibly gain by destabilizing a pre-integration species? I had been asking myself the same question. It doesn't make strategic sense. The Council will respond with force now. They have risked open war. Unless that's what they want, Quen said quietly. The thought had occurred to me as well, but hearing her say it made it more real, more terrifying. A proxy war, using Earth as the battlefield. It would be consistent with their previous strategies, Quen noted, pulling up historical data. The Craxus prefer to fight on neutral territory, drawing their enemies away from defensive positions. But Earth isn't neutral territory, I argued. It's under Council protection. Protection? Yes, but not integration. The humans have no formal alliance with the Council. They don't even know we exist. Quen paused. Or they didn't, until today. As we debated, a new transmission came through from the Council. It was marked highest priority and came directly from the High Observer herself. Observer Vos, the stern face of High Observer Larna Dex, filled our screen. Report on the current situation. I straightened automatically. High Observer, the situation is fluid. The humans have contained the immediate Craxus threat and secured their technology. However, knowledge of alien life is spreading rapidly throughout their information networks. There is no possibility of maintaining the secrecy of our existence. High Observer Dex's expression remained impassive. And what is your assessment of human reaction to this knowledge? Mixed, as would be expected, I replied. Fear, excitement, religious interpretations. Their military forces are on high alert. Their governments are trying to project calm while clearly being in crisis themselves. And your recommendation? The question surprised me. Observers weren't typically asked for policy recommendations. We gathered data. The Council made decisions. My recommendation, High Observer? Yes. Observer Vos, you have spent 3 years studying this species. You have just witnessed their first encounter with extraterrestrial life. In your professional opinion, how should the Council proceed? I glanced at Quen, who looked as surprised as I felt. I took a moment to consider my words carefully. High Observer, I believe immediate formal contact is our only viable option. The humans now know they are not alone, and their first contact was violent. If we delay, fear and misinformation will dominate their response. Additionally, they now possess Craxus technology, which they will attempt to reverse engineer. Without proper guidance, this could lead to dangerous developments. High Observer Dex nodded slowly. The Council has reached a similar conclusion. We are dispatching a first contact delegation. It will arrive in 48 hours. Until then, you are authorized to establish preliminary communication with human leadership. Prepare them for formal contact. My heart's nearly stopped. High Observer, with respect, Observer Quinn and I are not trained for first contact protocols. No one is trained for this scenario, Observer Vorsax, Dex replied with a hint of weariness. We have never had first contact precipitated by an assassination and military engagement. You are what we have available. The formal delegation will take over when they arrive. Understood, High Observer, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Any specific directives for this preliminary contact? Focus on establishing calm. Help them understand that the Craxes do not represent galactic society as a whole. Do not share detailed information about council politics or military capabilities. And Observer Yes, High Observer. Try not to start a panic. One assassination is quite enough for today. With that rather unhelpful advice, the transmission ended. Quen and I stared at each other in silence for a moment. Well, I said finally, this certainly isn't how I expected my observation career to progress. At least you can't complain about boredom anymore, Quen replied, a nervous click in her mandibles. No, I agreed, looking down at the chaotic planet below us. I believe boredom is the least of our concerns now. We spent the next hour debating how best to approach the humans. Direct communication with their military. A global broadcast. A private meeting with what remained of their leadership. In the end, we decided to start where the crisis had begun, with General Okafor. She had already received information from us once, and had responded with remarkable adaptability. She seemed our best hope for a rational first conversation. I prepared our ship to land near the facility, which was now surrounded by a perimeter of human military vehicles. As we descended, deactivating our stealth systems, I couldn't help but reflect on the irony of my earlier complaints. For 3 years, I had lamented the tedium of observation duty. Now I was about to become the first council representative to have a face-to-face conversation with a human. Be careful what you wish for, as the humans themselves might say. Our ship settled gently on an open area near the facility. Human weapons immediately trained on us, but no one fired. Perhaps they had learned caution after their encounter with the Craxes. Ready? I asked Quen, who was adjusting her universal translator. She gave me a look that somehow combined terror and excitement. Not remotely, but let's do it anyway. Together we walked to the airlock. The ship's sensors confirmed that Earth's atmosphere was breathable for both our species, though Quena would find it slightly dry. Remember, I said, we represent the entire Galactic Council in this moment. The first impression we make could influence human-galactic relations for centuries. Thank you for that completely unnecessary addition to my anxiety, Quen replied dryly. The airlock opened, and Earth's air rushed in, carrying with it the weight of history in the making. We stepped out onto human soil, the first council representatives to do so openly in 3 centuries of observation. Ahead of us, a line of human soldiers stood with weapons raised. Behind them, I could see General Okafor walking forward, her expression a careful mask of professional calm. I raised my hands in what I hoped would be recognized as a universal gesture of peace. General Okafor, I said, my translator converting my words to the human English language. My name is Observer Thalanix Vos of the Galactic Council. We have much to discuss. The general stopped a few meters away, studying us with intense focus. Then, to my surprise, she raised her own hands in a mirroring gesture. Observer Vorsi, she replied, her voice steady despite the extraordinary circumstances. On behalf of humanity, I accept your invitation to talk. But I should warn you, after today, we have a lot of questions. I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped me. General, I would be disappointed if you didn't. And so began humanity's official entry into galactic society, not with careful planning and diplomatic ceremonies as the Council had always intended, but with an assassination, a battle, and 2 unprepared observers standing in a field surrounded by nervous human soldiers. One human's death had indeed been the spark. What remained to be seen was how much of the universe would become ash in the fire that followed. General Okafor insisted on moving our discussion indoors, away from the prying eyes of the human media that had gathered at the perimeter. Smart woman. The facility, now cleared of Craxus bodies and secured by human military, became our impromptu first contact site. So, General Okafor said as we settled into a conference room. Her voice was steady, but I could detect the subtle tremor of adrenaline still coursing through her system. You have been watching us. It wasn't a question. I decided honesty was the best approach. Yes, the Galactic Council has been observing Earth for approximately 300 of your years. The general's eyebrows rose slightly. 300 years, and you never thought to say hello? Gwen clicked her mandibles nervously. It's standard protocol for pre-integration species. We observe until a civilization reaches certain technological and sociological benchmarks before making contact. And we hadn't reached those benchmarks, Okafor stated flatly. Not all of them, no, I admitted. Your faster-than-light travel capabilities are still theoretical. Your global governance systems are fragmented. Your environmental management has improved, but remains concerning. Okafor leaned forward. And yet here you are, talking to me, because some other aliens decided to assassinate our president. The Craxus, I clarified. They are not representative of galactic society. In fact, they are outliers who refuse to join the Galactic Council. Think of them as rogue actors, terrorists, Okafor supplied. I considered this. The analogy is imperfect but functionally accurate for your understanding, yes. The general stood suddenly, pacing the room. I noted how the human security personnel tensed at her movement, but remained disciplined. So let me get this straight. You have been watching us like we are some kind of reality show for centuries. Meanwhile, there's an entire galactic community out there that we knew nothing about. And now we are caught in the middle of what? Some kind of space Cold War. Gwen and I exchanged glances. Her middle eye contracted with concern. The situation is more complex than that, I said carefully. The Craxus have violated numerous treaties by interfering on Earth. Their actions were unprecedented and baffling. Frankly,
Baffling?
Okafor stopped pacing. You don't know why they killed our president? We have theories, I said, but no certainties. The Craxus have been contained within their home systems for generations. This aggressive expansion is new behavior. A human aide entered the room and whispered something to Okafor. Her expression darkened. Well, Observer Voice, it seems the Craxus aren't done with us yet. We are detecting multiple unidentified objects entering Earth orbit. Based on your earlier information, they match Craxus ship configurations. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. The Council monitoring stations would have detected a Craxus fleet movement. Evidently not, Okafor said dryly. Unless your Council is less competent than you have led me to believe. I activated my communication device. Gwen, contact the Council immediately. Inform them of the Craxus fleet presence. As Gwen stepped aside to make the transmission, I turned back to Okafor. General, if there is indeed a Craxus fleet in orbit, your planet is in grave danger. Their technology far exceeds your current defensive capabilities. So we have noticed, she replied with grim humor, those weapons they used, nothing like we have ever seen before. The Council delegation is still 45 hours away. Until then, we are on our own, Okafor finished. Except for you two. I felt the weight of her words. Two observers in an unarmed science vessel against a Craxus battle fleet. The odds were not worth calculating. We will provide whatever assistance we can, I said, trying to project more confidence than I felt. But our ship is not designed for combat. What about the information you sent us? Okafor asked. About their shield vulnerabilities and weapon systems. Could we adapt our existing weapons? Possibly, I said, but scaling up from personal weapons to orbital defense would require significant modifications and time, which I fear we don't have. Gwen returned, her three eyes wide with alarm. Observer Vort, the Council confirms no Craxus fleet movements have been detected. Whatever these ships are, they didn't come from Craxus territory. That doesn't make sense, I muttered. Where else would they come from? A new voice answered from the doorway. Perhaps I can shed some light on that question. We all turned to see a human male enter the room. Unlike the military personnel, he wore civilian clothes and expensive-looking suit. His thin face bore the confident smile of someone used to having power. Director Finley, Okafor said, her voice cooling several degrees. This is a secure military operation. You don't have clearance to be here. On the contrary, General, the man replied smoothly. The President's death activated certain protocols. As director of the Special Projects Division, I now have oversight of this situation. I noticed something odd about this human. While everyone else in the room radiated stress, fear, or at least surprise at meeting aliens, This Finley showed none of those reactions. He seemed almost expectant. And what special projects would those be, Director? Okafor asked, suspicion evident in her tone. Finley smiled wider. The kind that have been preparing for this day for a very long time, General. He turned to me. Observer, Bors. Is it? I must say, your arrival is somewhat ahead of schedule, but we are adaptable. A cold feeling spread through me. You knew about it. Not you specifically, Finley clarified, but we have known we weren't alone for decades. Those ships entering orbit. They are ours. The room fell silent. Okafor looked as shocked as I felt. That's impossible, she said finally. We don't have that kind of technology. Not officially, no, Finley agreed. Special Projects operates outside normal chains of command, General, necessary compartmentalization. After the Roswell incident in 1947, certain factions within the global power structure realized we needed to prepare for eventual contact. We have been borrowing technology where we could find it. I felt sick. You have been stealing crashed technology, salvaging it. Resourceful, aren't we? Finley said with unmistakable pride. We couldn't match your FTL capabilities, but defensive systems, weapons, communications we have made remarkable progress. The ships you are detecting are our Sentinel fleet. First generation, admittedly, but operational. Quinn was frantically checking data on her tablet.
Observer Vusa.
He appears to be telling the truth. The energy signatures are a mixture of technologies, some Craxus, some Arcturian, even some Zeta components. But they are all mounted on what appear to be human-designed vessels. I struggled to process this. In 3 centuries of observation, we had never detected this level of technological development, which meant you have been hiding from us, I said, the realization dawning, deliberately masking your advancements. Of course, Finley replied as if it were obvious. We observed your observation posts, figured out your scanning patterns, created technological dark zones. It wasn't that difficult once we knew what to look for. Okafor looked like she might explode. And when exactly was the military going to be informed about our secret space fleet, Director? When it became necessary, Finley said dismissively. Like now, a human communication device buzzed. One of Okafor's aides answered it, then turned pale. General, we are receiving reports of Craxus ships appearing in orbit, real ones this time. They are deploying smaller craft toward major cities. An invasion, I whispered. This was beyond anything I could have imagined this morning. The Council needs to be informed immediately. This is an act of war. Your Council is 45 hours away, Observer, Finley noted calmly. We will have to manage on our own until then. How? Okafor demanded. Even with your secret toys, Director, we are outmatched. Finley's smile never wavered. Are we? The Craxus think they are attacking a primitive world with no significant defenses. They are expecting to face conventional weapons and panicking civilians. Instead, they are going to encounter our Sentinel fleet and defense systems specifically designed to counter their technology, thanks to various acquisitions over the years. I exchanged a troubled look with Quen. This human, Finley, disturbed me on a fundamental level. His calm in the face of planetary invasion was unnatural. Director, I said slowly, I don't think you understand the gravity of the situation. The Craxus are one of the most advanced military powers in the galaxy. Even with salvage technology, your defenses won't hold for long. Perhaps, Finley conceded. But we don't need to win. We just need to hold them off until your Council arrives. And in the meantime, we will learn a great deal about Craxus battle tactics. Data that will be extremely valuable moving forward. I stared at him in disbelief. You are treating this as a learning opportunity. Your planet is under attack. Every crisis is an opportunity, Observer Voice, Finley replied. Humanity has survived by adapting, by learning from our enemies. Today will be no different. Okafor had clearly heard enough. Secure communications with the Joint Chiefs now, she barked at an aide, and get me direct access to the Sentinel Fleet Command. That would be Dr. Amara Khatri, Finley supplied helpfully. Brilliant woman, reverse-engineered her first alien power cell at 17. As the humans scrambled to organize their defense, Quen pulled me aside. Observer Vots, we need to return to our ship. If the Craxus are deploying ground forces, we should get airborne. She was right, of course, but something kept me rooted to the spot. The revelation that humans had been hiding their technological progress from us was shocking enough. But Finley's casual attitude toward a planetary invasion suggested something even more disturbing, that perhaps this wasn't entirely unexpected. "Director Finley," I called as he was about to leave the room. "One more question. The assassination of President Velasquez, did you anticipate that as well?" The slight hesitation before his answer told me everything. We had intelligence suggesting the Craxus were taking an interest in Earth. The specific timing and target were unfortunate surprises. "You knew," I accused. "You knew they were coming, and you did nothing to prevent the assassination." Finley's expression hardened slightly. Observer voice. "In human history, great advancements often require great catalysts. The death of President Velasquez is tragic, but it has united our planet in ways nothing else could have. Within hours, age-old conflicts have been set aside in the face of a common enemy." "You're using this invasion," I realized with horror. "Using it to advance your agenda." "I prefer to think of it as making the best of an inevitable situation," Finley replied. "Now if you will excuse me, I have a planet to help defend." As he left, Quen touched my arm. "Phalanx, we really need to go." I nodded numbly, following her out of the facility. The sky above had darkened with unnatural clouds, atmospheric disturbance from the ships entering the lower atmosphere. Our observation vessel remained untouched, where we had landed it. As we approached, I noticed human military personnel had formed a protective perimeter around it. General Okafor had followed us out. "I'm assigning a security detail to escort you to wherever you need to go," she said. "Considering the circumstances, I think it's in everyone's best interest that our first friendly aliens remain safe." "Thank you, General," I replied, "but our vessel has stealth capabilities that will protect us. Your troops would be better deployed defending your people." Okafor nodded grimly. "Then I hope we meet again, Observer Vise, preferably when we are not in the middle of an alien invasion." "As do I, General." I hesitated, then added, "Be wary of Director Finley. I suspect his agenda may not align perfectly with humanity's best interests." "Trust me," Okafor replied with a tight smile. "That man has been on my radar for years. We just never knew what he was actually directing until today." As Quen and I boarded our ship, the first explosions lit up the distant sky. The Craxus attack had begun. "Setting course for optimal observation altitude," Quen said as we lifted off, activating our stealth systems. "No," I decided, "set course for the nearest Craxus landing site. If we can't fight them directly, we can at least gather intelligence for the humans." Kren looked at me in surprise. "Observer voice, that significantly exceeds our mandate." "Our mandate went out the airlock the moment the Craxus assassinated a planetary leader," I replied. "The Council has already authorized intervention. Until the formal delegation arrives, we are all Earth has in terms of galactic representation." The ship rose swiftly through the atmosphere, our sensors immediately picking up the chaos unfolding across the planet. Craxus landing craft were touching down in 12 major human cities. Orbital bombardment had begun against military installations, and rising to meet them, just as Finley had claimed, was a small fleet of human vessels clearly cobbled together from various alien technologies, but impressive nonetheless. How did we miss this? I wondered aloud as we watched the human ships engage the first wave of Craxus attackers. 3 centuries of observation, and we never detected their technological advancement. "Perhaps we saw what we expected to see," Quen suggested quietly. "We expected primitive technology, so we didn't look deeper." Her words struck uncomfortably close to home. Had we been so confident in our superiority that we'd overlooked the evidence before us? It was a humbling thought. We directed our ship toward Washington, where the heaviest fighting appeared to be concentrated. As we approached, our sensors captured a Craxus command ship descending toward the ruins of the human government complex where President Velasquez had been assassinated. "That's odd," Quen noted. "The Craxus rarely put command personnel in the initial assault wave, unless they are after something specific," I replied, a suspicion forming. "Something in Washington they want to secure quickly. The assassination site? Possibly. Or something nearby." I adjusted our course to intercept. "Let's find out." As we neared the landing site, our communication system suddenly activated, an incoming transmission on a Galactic Council emergency frequency. "Observer vessel, meticulous inquiry. This is Council diplomatic cruiser Reasoned Discourse. Respond immediately." Quinn and I stared at each other in shock. The council delegation wasn't supposed to arrive for another 45 hours. I accepted the transmission. "This is Observer Vorse. Diplomatic cruiser, your arrival is well ahead of schedule." The face that appeared on our screen wasn't the diplomatic representative I'd expected. It was Admiral Zircon of the Council Defense Fleet, his scale-covered face set in a grim expression. "Observer Voss, the situation has escalated beyond diplomatic solutions. The Council has declared the Craxus actions an act of war against a protected world. The Defense Fleet has been mobilized." My heart's nearly stopped. The Defense Fleet here, now? The advance force is already entering the system, Admiral Zircon confirmed. "We detected the Craxus fleet movement from their staging area in the SETI sector. They have been planning this for some time. Observer, this isn't a random attack, it's a coordinated invasion of a strategic world." "But how did you get here so quickly?" Quinn asked, voicing the question that was burning in my mind. The Admiral's expression darkened. "Because we were already en route, Observer. The Council has been monitoring Craxus fleet movements for months. When they began gathering near the Earth sector, we dispatched a response force as a precaution." The implications hit me like a gravitational shock. The Council knew the Craxus were targeting Earth and didn't inform the observation team. "The information was classified at the highest levels," Zircon replied, not quite meeting my eyes. "There were concerns about potential intelligence leaks. They didn't trust us," I translated bitterly. 3 years of faithful service, and they thought we might compromise security. "Politics," the Admiral said dismissively. "Not my department. What matters now is coordinating our response with the humans. We have detected their defensive fleet, unexpected but fortunate. I need you to facilitate contact between our forces and theirs immediately." The universe had gone mad. I decided. In the span of a single day, I'd gone from board observer to first contact representative to military liaison. "Understood, Admiral. We have established contact with human military leadership. General Mira Okafor would be your best initial point of coordination." "Good. Transmit her communication protocols to my ship and Vibras. The Council delegation will still arrive in 45 hours. If there's anything left of this planet by then, they will handle the diplomatic fallout. Until then, you are authorized to share whatever information is necessary to defend Earth." "Yes, Admiral," I replied, feeling a weight settle onto my shoulders. Meticulous inquiry out. As the transmission ended, Quinn and I watched the first Council Defense Fleet ships appear in Earth orbit. Sleek, powerful vessels that made even the Craxus ships look primitive by comparison. "The humans are going to have questions," Quinn said, "about why we didn't warn them, about why the Council kept secrets from its own observers. Questions I don't have good answers for," I admitted. "But first, let's make sure they survive long enough to ask them." I set course back to the military facility where we'd left General Okafor. As we flew, the battle for Earth unfolded beneath us. Human resistance was stronger than the Craxus had clearly anticipated. Their secret fleet, while small, was effectively targeting Craxus vulnerabilities. Ground forces were engaged in urban combat in major cities, with human military showing remarkable adaptability against the technologically superior invaders. And now, with Council forces arriving, the tide was beginning to turn. "Observer Vorse," Quinn said suddenly, her voice tight. "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Craxus command ship in Washington." I checked the sensor readings and felt my blood freeze. That's a planetary bombardment weapon powering up. They are going to level the entire city. But why? They have ground forces there. Because they are losing, I realized. This isn't about conquest anymore, it's about making a statement. If they can't have Earth, they will make sure no one can. I slammed our ship into maximum speed, simultaneously opening a channel to Admiral Zircon. "Admiral, Craxus command ship over Washington is preparing to deploy a city killer. They are going to obliterate the capital." "We see it," came the terse reply. "All available ships are moving to intercept, but we won't make it in time. The weapon is already in final charging sequence. I made a split-second decision that would likely end my career if we survived this day. Quinn, disengage stealth systems and redirect all power to forward shields. We are going in." Her eyes widened. "Phoenix, that's suicide. Our ship can't withstand a direct engagement with a Craxus battlecruiser. We don't need to destroy it," I explained, hands flying across the controls. We just need to disrupt their firing sequence. If we can crash into their main emitter array with our shields at full power, it might buy enough time for the defense fleet to arrive. Quinn stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. Redirecting power now. It's been an honor, Observer Vorth. The honor is mine, Observer Quinn. Our small observation vessel screamed through the atmosphere, directly toward the massive Craxus ship hovering over Washington. As we approached, I could see the central weapon array glowing with deadly energy, preparing to reduce the city and millions of humans to ash. Impact in 10 seconds, Quinn reported calmly. Shields at maximum. I opened a general broadcast channel. This is Observer Voice of the Galactic Council. To any humans who can hear this transmission, it has been our privilege to witness your species, even briefly. You are more remarkable than you know. The Craxus ship loomed larger in our view screen, its weapon now blindingly bright as it reached critical charge. 5 seconds, Quinn counted. 4, 3. A sudden burst of light filled our view screen, but not from the direction we expected. From behind the Craxus ship, a massive energy beam cut through space, striking the battlecruiser's engines. The ship lurched, its firing sequence disrupted. What was that? I exclaimed, pulling our ship into an emergency evasive maneuver to avoid collision. As we banked hard around the now destabilized Craxus vessel, we saw our unexpected savior. A human ship, far larger than any they had deployed so far, its hull gleaming with an energy signature I'd never seen before. Our communication system activated. Observer vessel, this is Dr. Amara Khatri of the Earth Defense Vessel Prometheus. Thought you could use a hand. I let out a laugh that was half relief, half hysteria. Dr. Khatri, your timing is impeccable. We have been keeping this one in reserve, came the reply. Didn't want to show all our cards at once. Now might be a good time to clear the area. We are not quite sure how stable this weapon system is. We didn't need to be told twice. As our ship pulled away, the Prometheus fired again, its beam cutting the Craxus command ship in half. The resulting explosion lit up the sky over Washington. Quinn, I said, watching the remains of the Craxus vessel fall into the Potomac River. I think we may have significantly underestimated the humans. So did the Craxus, she replied. A mistake they won't live to regret. With the destruction of their command ship, the Craxus invasion faltered. Council defense fleet vessels engaged the remaining ships in orbit, while human forces now coordinating with Council tactical advisors pushed back against ground troops. We returned to the military facility, landing once again in what was becoming a familiar spot. General Okafor met us at the entrance, looking exhausted but triumphant. Your Council friends make quite an entrance, she said by way of greeting. Admiral Zircon has been very helpful. Turns out our weapons systems are more compatible with yours than we expected. Director Finley's work, I presume? I asked. Okafor's expression soured slightly. Finley's currently explaining to the Joint Chiefs exactly how and why he's been hiding a space fleet from his own government. But yes, his acquisitions have proven useful today. Inside the facility, a makeshift command center had been established. Humans worked alongside Council military advisors who had shuttled down from the defense fleet. On large screens, the battle for Earth played out, now clearly turning in our favor. The Craxus are retreating from all major cities, a human officer reported. Their remaining ships are attempting to break orbit, but the Council fleet has them contained. Admiral Zircon entered the room, his imposing presence causing the humans to fall silent momentarily. General Okafor, the Craxus fleet commander, has requested terms of surrender. I wanted to consult with you before responding. Okafor looked surprised. With me? This is your jurisdiction, Admiral. We are not even members of your council. Perhaps not officially, Zircon replied. But Earth has defended itself as a council world today. Your people have earned the right to help decide the fate of those who attacked you. I watched this exchange with a strange mixture of pride and unease. In a single day, humanity had gone from an observed pre-integration species to a de facto council ally. The normal processes of integration, usually taking decades of careful diplomatic preparation, had been bypassed entirely by the crucible of war. As Okafor and Zircon discussed surrender terms, Director Finley approached me. Despite the circumstances, he still maintained that unsettling calm. Observer Voss, he greeted me. Quite a day for human-alien relations. Indeed, I replied coolly, though I suspect not entirely unplanned on your part. Finley smiled thinly. History rarely moves without a push, observer. Sometimes several pushes from different directions. You knew the Craxus were coming, I accused quietly. You have been preparing for this specific scenario. Not this specific scenario, he corrected. But yes, we have been aware of Craxus' interest in Earth for some time. Their agents aren't as subtle as they believe, and you didn't think to share this information with your own leadership, or with the Council. Finley's smile never wavered. Would your Council have accelerated integration if we had? Or would they have continued to watch us like specimens in a laboratory until we met their arbitrary benchmarks? Sometimes, observer Voss, if you want a seat at the table, you have to kick down the door. Before I could respond, Quinn hurried over. Observer Voss, the formal Council diplomatic delegation has arrived early. They are requesting permission to land. Of course they had. Nothing about this day was proceeding according to protocol. Earth's first official diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council, Finley mused. A historic moment, one might even call it a spark that will change the universe forever. As I looked around at humans and Council representatives working side by side, at the aftermath of battle still unfolding on the screens, at the complex web of deception and counter-deception that had led to this moment, I couldn't help but wonder if Finley was right. One human's death had indeed been the spark, but the fire it had ignited wasn't consuming the universe in ash, it was forging something new from the heat of conflict. Earth was entering the galactic community not as a carefully guided junior partner, but as a battle-tested ally who had already proven their worth. And as for me, my career as an observer was clearly over, but as I watched General Okafor shake hands with Admiral Zircon finalizing the Craxus surrender, I found I didn't particularly care. Some things were worth sacrificing a career for. Shall we go greet the diplomats? Quinn asked. I nodded. Let's introduce them to humanity. I have a feeling it's going to be a relationship unlike any the Council has ever experienced. As we walked outside to meet the approaching diplomatic shuttle, I glanced back at the command center where humans and aliens worked together, united by the shared experience of combat. Earth's path to integration was unprecedented, messy, and far from ideal, but then again, that seemed oddly appropriate for humanity. The diplomatic shuttle landed gracefully, its sleek design a stark contrast to our battered observation vessel. The door opened and High Observer Dex herself emerged, looking both regal and slightly bewildered by the chaos around her. Observer Voss, she said formally. I understand it's been an eventful day. I couldn't help the laugh that escaped me. High Observer, you have no idea. Welcome to Earth. Things move rather quickly here. Behind her I could see the diplomatic team anxiously consulting their carefully prepared first contact protocols that were now hopelessly irrelevant in the wake of assassination, invasion, and alliance forged in battle. They are going to need to improvise, Gwen murmured beside me.
Yes.
I agreed. When dealing with humans, I suspect that's a skill we are all going to need to develop. The universe would never be the same, and frankly, that was probably for the best.